Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Gonzalez, and I'm a sophomore at Kansas City High School. Today, I'm excited to introduce Rabindra Ratan. Rabindra Ratan is associate professor and AT&T scholar at Michigan State University Department of Media and Information, as well as director of social and psychological approachment to research and technology. Interaction Effects Lab, or as they refer to, the Spotty Lab. Dr. Ratan conducts research on effects of human-technology interactions, focusing on how media and technologies influence equity, inclusion, and motivate across societal contexts. Dr. Ratan has authored over 50 peer-reviewed articles, has been awarded over $2 million in grant funding, and has received multiple teaching awards. He also hosts a Spottycast. He labs podcasts and regularly contributes articles to theconversation.com. Please join me in welcoming Rabindra Ratan.
Wow, this game is awesome. Oh, hello there. Just kidding. I know I'm giving a talk. I'm not playing a video game, but I will do it on my skateboard because this is how I normally teach a large group of students, groups of about 200 or 300 students. I find myself kind of boring, so I need a prop. I need something to keep me moving. So hopefully I can keep you awake as well with the skateboard, but also I try to engage my students in something called the Metaverse. How many of you have heard of the Metaverse? I'm seeing, oh, and this thing right here is a 360 camera. So I'll explain the significance of that to you in a little bit, but I'm recording this talk. I'm also recording all of you, so if you want to opt out of that, you can, hide your face. You're all pretty dark out there. But so people who view this will be able to view this video in a headset like that. They'll be able to look around. They'll be able to look at me kind of close up here, but they could turn around and they could see that about 50% of your hands, maybe more, went up when I asked about the Metaverse. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Did I? Oh, I jumped forward. Sorry about that. So I'm going to get you versed in the Metaverse and tell you how things like virtual reality and avatars and crypto assets, maybe you haven't heard of that, but hopefully we'll spend a little bit of time on it and you can tell me what you know. We'll change the future of work, socializing, education, play, the economy, golfing even, which of course is relevant to Pebble Beach. So, the Metaverse, what will it be? It doesn't exist yet. It will be an interconnected network of immersive virtual spaces. Let's just parse that a little bit. What do I mean by that? It will essentially be a three-dimensional internet. You can get into a three-dimensional world in a VR headset right now. You can even do it with each other, with your kids, your grandkids, your friends from years past. You can feel like you're together. But we're not quite at the stage yet where we are with the internet, where you can just jump on an app and smoothly move from one place to another. To navigate the virtual worlds of the Metaverse will require a bit more production and development on the technology side, but the infrastructure is largely there, and so you can start to experience it now. The term was coined in 1992 in Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, which built in some ways on the themes of William Gibson's Neuromancer, which coined the term cyberspace, which we often use for the internet, but really the vision of the internet as immersive was already there in science fiction from decades ago. But the Metaverse, what exactly is so cool about it? I read this book in 2005 as a grad student in the communication department at Stanford. My advisor at the time, Jeremy Bailenson, one of the foremost VR researchers in the world, he said, this stuff is going to be real. One day, this thing that you're reading in this book will be accessible. It will be cheap enough for people to buy and use and teach their students. And And he was right. Here I am. So I'm glad I was inspired to spend my academic career studying this stuff at that time, because here I am sharing about it with you. All right, one important note. There is one metaverse, or there will be one metaverse in the same way as we think of one internet. Maybe there isn't exactly one internet. We've got the great firewall blocking certain people off, but in many ways we want to think of it as a monolithic, easily interconnected network of virtual spaces, like the internet, the future of the internet. So why all the hubbub, right? We've had this technology for decades. Since the 60s, we've been able to put computers on our faces and feel like we were in a virtual environment. 20 years ago, when I was a grad student getting inspired by Snow Crash, I was running studies in the lab. I would bring people in, we would put a VR headset on their face, we would put them in a couple different avatar conditions. Maybe they would see, it was Bush and Kerry, they would see Bush or Kerry kind of presenting to them either with their face morphed in or not morphed in, and we found they were more likely to vote for the candidate if their face was morphed in, or if the avatar's head movements were mimicking at a few second delay. Those headsets were $300,000, that experience. One like that today, $400. It was actually $300 until just a couple months ago. So we've seen a massive decline in the cost of these things, which of course contributes to adoption, right? Economies of scale. I'm sure you all understand that well. But what's so important about this technology anyway? Why don't we just watch videos? You can kind of get the same experience. We can do Zoom calls, right? Well, it's the sense of presence. Psychologically, this is a topic that we've been studying in my field for decades. Presence, spatial presence, feeling like you're there. Right now, we all feel like we're in this lovely auditorium. You're sitting in a seat, you're around other people, but it's the other people that matter even more. That's social presence. So first you get spatial presence, you're there. Then you get social presence, you're there with other people. And that's really what's changed. Fast speed internet, cheap connectivity, cheap headsets, you can finally do this with each other. That's what changed in the last 2 years. And that will be a drastic change for the entire future of the internet. We also have this stuff called blockchain. Have you heard of that? How many of you? All right, good. All my VR viewers, you can turn around, see we had about 30%. Blockchain is essentially a tool for decentralizing a record of ownership. I don't want to go into too much detail, because it's not exactly my area of research, though I do write about it a bit. But it's essentially the foundation for things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which you might have heard of, which allow us to own NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which are something digital you can prove you own, and thus you can sell it to someone else. Non-fungible, meaning you own that one thing, and it is not exchangeable for an equal other thing. A dollar is fungible. You can take a dollar bill, trade it for another one, same exact value. But a non-fungible token holds value as a singular entity, okay? Why does that matter in this context of the metaverse? Well, imagine that the economy of the internet were so easily trackable that you could break it down to a single picture, a single avatar, a single environment. Then I could sell you this virtual auditorium, and it would be yours. And you could use it to host events and charge people to come, and then you could sell it to someone else. Right? It's a massive tool for branding, a tool for information sharing, an opportunity to provide economic development in countries and places that don't have access because of physical barriers, political barriers. There's great potential in the economic activity in the metaverse, largely because of this mechanism for ownership of digital goods. But I don't want to belabor that too much, because I want to talk about what you guys can experience if you try one of these headsets, if you even just download an app on your phone. The first couple apps up there, Coinbase and OpenSea, are examples of ways you can learn a bit more about engaging in the financial side, that foundation side. And there are platforms like Decentraland is a virtual world that is designed to focus on buying and selling land. Maybe it's the most popular one, buying virtual land. I don't recommend it. Go invest in Pebble Beach real estate. You could, or don't actually, don't invest in any of that. Invest in time and experiences and education, which is what you're doing here today, and that's excellent. That's so admirable. But platforms like Engage, that's what I use with my students. So I have my students, we have 30 of us this semester. They have headsets, they put them on. I'll talk about it as a case study in a moment. But we get into this virtual world together, and it's a very smooth, stable, even business-appropriate experience. And Engage is a platform designed, targeted toward businesses, having business meetings, right? Imagine meeting clients or donors or people who you might be striking some sort of deal with. And you don't want to travel across the world. You don't want that carbon footprint. You don't want to spend that time. You don't want to deal with the jet lag. You can get a lot of that social presence that you would in the face-to-face meeting. It might not be as good as the face-to-face meeting, but it's way better than a video call. It's way more immersive. And so you can build that trust, that rapport, that relationship that you get to a much greater extent. There are other platforms, hubs. That one's really easy if any of you want to pull out your phone at intermission and just Google hubs, Mozilla. 30 seconds later, you're in a virtual world on your phone. You've got an avatar, you can kind of pinch to move around, you can scroll and look up and down and around, and you can have multiple people, you can invite each other, you can be in avatars together, so that one is super easy to get into. VR Chat and Spatial are a couple other just simple virtual worlds that are very popular. Horizons from Meta has a suite of spaces you could use. Worlds is social. Workrooms is for work. And like the one in the top right, Immersed, allows you to connect your keyboard to your virtual world. So imagine you've got a powerful little laptop, but it's little. You want a big monitor? You want 6 big monitors? You just throw on a VR headset, and those monitors are virtual. And so you can work in an efficient way, assuming your computer's fast enough to do this without lag, because you don't want to vomit while you're working. That's number 1 rule when we bring participants in the lab, don't make them vomit. Same thing goes for the Meta workplace. But now imagine you can do that with each other. You can do that with your colleagues. You can almost literally share your screen. Just turn it. And, hey, look at my screen. This is what I'm working on. Hey, take this 3-dimensional object, this car I designed, this factory floor efficiency plan that I'm generating in conjunction with my AI support team. It's so much easier to visualize when you are there together with this 3-dimensional object in front of you. So the potential for working together in VR is quite great. Horizon Venues is a platform for large events like concerts like this series today. And then last but not least, Ready Player Me is a platform for generating avatars, which I admire, and I'll talk about that in a moment. All right, so this is a bit of a case study, my VR class. This was my first class I taught in VR. It focused on VR. My students and I met in person at Michigan State University, where most of them didn't have headsets, so we lent them headsets, which we purchased with money provided by Meta for my research, and we talked about VR, learning and training and avatars, but more importantly, we just played with the medium, and I kind of pushed on the boundaries of what teaching in that space really meant, and I discovered a few things. First, this platform is very good for discussion. You really are able to feel like you're connected to people, take turns in talking, share that non-verbal, or in my field we might call them paralinguistic cues with each other that are just lost in a lot of our flat screen communication. We can also multitask. You might notice I'm going back and forth. You're all paying attention. I'm not doing this for your benefit. I'm doing it for me. I need to fidget. My mind is so active, and especially when I'm lecturing, I have a lot of nervous energy. If my students are on Zoom, you know what they do with that nervous energy? They read their email, they watch a YouTube video, they go play a video game, and they're lost. I have just completely lost them to that multitasking activity. Here comes in fidgeting. My students, it's hard to see maybe, my students draw in 3D when we're in VR together. They spawn little objects. They put a chair in the air and they sit in it and they flip it around upside down. And as long as they don't vomit, I don't mind. And as long as it's not distracting from other people kind of around the centerpiece, I'll put up their comments on the readings and then I'll discuss it with them in real time. As long as it's not distracting, that multitasking, that fidgeting is actually very good for keeping their attention, keeping them engaged. And the third one is contextual memory. Every class, we would switch to a different environment. We were talking about sports training in VR, putting a quarterback in the first person so they can read the field, see what to do in different plays, way better than doing it in the third person, and there are big companies doing that now. So we did that in the gym, and my students, at the end of the semester, they said, oh yes. I asked them, which topics were your favorite? And they didn't just list the topics. I didn't prompt them with this. They listed the topics and where we learned it. We were in the gym for that one. We were in the Coliseum for that one. We were on a catamaran for that one. So contextual learning, as you probably very well know, right? You will associate this auditorium, this space, with the things that you are learning today. Well, we can do that in VR. And my students say, well, if I sit all day and Zoom after Zoom, it's terrible. Every class blends together. I have no contextual anchor for associating that learning. However, it's hard to take notes on a piece of paper with your hand or on your keyboard when you're in VR. So that's one limitation. Another limitation is that while class discussion about a topic is great, and pedagogically we can design the student experience around that, let's say I want to teach them about some complex subject. The anatomy of a pig. Well, there might be a simulation for that, and I can find it and I can bring them into it. But what if it's the physics of a supernova, and that's not made yet? Then I either need to make it myself, which the particle physicist might not have expertise in building virtual environments. I need to pay someone to do it, or I need to go find it out in the world. So there is both a limitation and a great opportunity here, right? The opportunity is for investment in the creation of pedagogical content. Pedagogical not just in classrooms, but for the world, right? The ability to immerse yourself and see the ventricles of the heart. Put yourself inside of that. That's the kind of simulation we're building at MSU for our students in physiology, and the possibilities are endless. What is it, 500 hours of YouTube videos get uploaded every minute? So just imagine how much content in VR is going to be created. My time is running short, so I'm going to skim through a few of the headier subjects. This one is called the Proteus effect, and it's a phenomenon which suggests that your avatar in a virtual world influences how you behave. If you use a taller avatar, you'll negotiate more aggressively. A more attractive avatar, you'll have more confidence. You'll stand closer to people in a virtual environment. If you use an avatar that looks like an inventor, lab coat, students actually come up with more creative ideas in a brainstorming task compared to street clothes avatars. That one's been replicated multiple times. This phenomenon has been replicated over 50 times. I conducted a meta-analysis on it a couple of years ago, and then we just extended that meta-analysis and found the effect size in VR is 0.30. By comparison, violent video games and aggression, the effect size is about 0.8, 0.11, depending on whose meta-analyses you trust. So it's strong. It's stronger than other media effects. It's possibly the strongest form of persuasion in some ways if it's done right, because who is better at persuading you of things than yourself? And your avatar is your virtual self. It is your virtual self-representation. The term avatar comes from Hinduism, meaning descent from a god to an earthly form. But now you can descend from your earthly form into a digital form, or any mediated form. We can think of avatars in robots, in drones. That's a little bit out there in the sci-fi world. But it's very important that we remember avatars are representations, so they're not you, and they facilitate interactions. So we use them for something. And with that definition, we can take some of our understanding of the psychology of avatar use and apply it in a variety of realms. And this one, this is kind of the example I'll leave you with, getting back to the economic potential of avatars. In the same way as we think about what we wear to work, what we wear to a convention, what we wear, around the house, we value how we present ourselves. So of course, people value how they present their avatars in virtual worlds. They'll spend money on it too. And I asked them, I did a survey with 600 people who were willing to get an average of $15 an hour for my short survey. So with that kind of caveat in mind, willingness to pay for an avatar t-shirt, $5. But that standard deviation is 25. That means we had a couple people saying $300 for an avatar t-shirt. For a professional context, that was the prompt. $300, couple people, but average $5. When I said you can own it as an NFT, remember NFT lets you own the stuff so you can sell it. $870. Branded. I said, what's a brand you value? I value Mont Blanc, right? Or well, I guess you can't buy Mont Blanc clothes. but I was thinking of pick a luxury brand. And then I said, how much would you pay for an avatar of that brand? The price jumped more than 2.5 times compared to an unbranded avatar shirt that you didn't own. But it didn't change between branded as an NFT and branded as not an NFT. So there's a lesson in that. Being able to resell your avatar clothes is not as important to people as the branding, which is even more evidence of this potential economic future for digital goods and self-presentation and interaction in these spaces, facilitated by this hardware right here, immersing you in exciting experiences, as I hope you maybe had a glimpse of today in my talk. So I've got 10 seconds. I guess questions come later, or I don't know. Thank you so much.